The year 2001 began like any other, but everything changed on September 11th. The United States woke up to a nightmare that unfolded with smoke, terror, and devastation. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, symbols of America's economic power, crumbled to the ground, victims trapped within the ruins. The Pentagon, a bastion of military might, was struck from within. Thousands of innocent lives were lost in an instant, and the world was forever altered. In the aftermath of the attacks, the nation torn by grief turned its focus to justice. The president vowed retribution, and the American military machine was set into motion. But there was a deeper, quieter force in the skies, a force that would become the hidden weapon in America's response, the B-2 Spirit bomber. Captain Jack Hayes was one of the few pilots who could operate the B-2, a jet shrouded in secrecy and power. For years, the world had heard whispers about the aircraft's capabilities, but few understood the full scope of its deadly precision. With its radar-evading design, the B-2 was practically invisible in the skies, able to deliver powerful strikes with unparalleled accuracy. It was the perfect tool for the mission that lay ahead, to strike at the heart of the enemy, while leaving no trace of its presence. Captain Hayes knew the stakes of the mission. He had flown countless sorties, but this mission felt different. The weight of the nation's grief and anger was on his shoulders. But it was more than that. It was the desire to ensure that those responsible for the tragedy would not escape justice. This mission wasn't just about warfare. It was about sending a message, about showing the world that America would not let fear define its future. Mission is a go, the voice over the radio crackled. The orders were clear: penetrate enemy airspace, target the terrorist network responsible for 9/11, and deliver the strike that would change everything. The targets were scattered deep inside Afghanistan, in some of the most heavily guarded regions on Earth. But the B-2 Spirit's advanced technology would allow Hayes and his co-pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Evans, to enter without detection. As the EB massive aircraft taxied down the runway, the glow of the runway lights illuminated its sleek, almost otherworldly design. It looked like a bird of prey, its wings sweeping back in a shape that defied conventional understanding. This was not just an aircraft. It was a weapon, a phantom, a symbol of power and precision. Inside the cockpit, Hayes and Evans were focused. The hum of the engines was steady, like a pulse beating in the quiet darkness. Hayes glanced at Evans, who was busy scanning the instruments before her. They had both been through intense training, but this mission was unlike any they had ever encountered. They weren't just flying to neutralize a target, they were flying to send a message to the world. "Let's do this," Hayes said, his voice steady but thick with the gravity of the moment. The B-2 soared into the sky, its radar-evading capabilities making it virtually invisible to enemy detection systems. As the bomber climbed, the world below seemed to fade into darkness. They were heading toward a place where no one would see them coming, a place where precision, secrecy, and the power of technology would reign supreme. They flew over the rugged terrain of Afghanistan, the land's jagged mountains and deep valleys hidden under the cloak of darkness. Their target was a compound believed to house high-ranking members of the terrorist network that had orchestrated the 9/11 attacks. A mix of intelligence, surveillance, and analysis had led to this move. The B-2 Spirit was their weapon, its stealth and power their greatest advantage. As they neared the target, the tension inside the cockpit mounted. Hayes could feel his pulse quicken. The target was in sight, an underground facility heavily fortified with guards and defensive systems. But the B-2 was undetectable. In the vast expanse of the night sky, it was a shadow, a whisper, a predator waiting to strike. "Target acquired," Evans reported, her fingers flying over the controls. "We're in range, Captain." Hayes nodded, his hand moving over the control panel. This was it, the moment they had trained for. With a single push of the button, the payload would drop, and the world would change. The B-2 Spirit's weapon systems engaged. The bombs were released, silently falling toward their target. The precision was flawless. Every calculation, every movement had been perfect. But as the bombs fell, the devastation wasn't immediate. It was almost surreal, the quiet before, the explosion. In the cockpit, all they could hear was the steady rhythm of the engines, as if the bomber itself was breathing, waiting. Then came the explosion. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't a shockwave that rattled their bodies. It was a silent burst of power, a calculated obliteration of the target below. The compound erupted in fire and dust, its structures disintegrating in an instant. Inside, the high-ranking terrorists had no idea what had hit them. They never saw the B-2, never even heard it coming. By the time the dust settled, Captain Hayes and Lieutenant Evans were already miles away, their mission complete. The B-2 Spirit had delivered its message, not through noise or devastation, but through the quiet efficiency of stealth and precision. Back at the Pentagon, a team of analysts watched as their target was confirmed destroyed. The mission was a success. The message had been sent. The terrorists who had taken so many lives on 9/11 had been struck down in their own stronghold, their grip on power shattered. But this was more than just a military strike. It was a statement. America had risen from the ashes of tragedy, and, with the B-2 Spirit, it had delivered a blow that no one would ever forget. The world would know that no matter how far the enemy fled, no matter how deeply they hid, justice would always find them. The B-2 Spirit had become the unseen hand of retribution, a symbol of America's commitment to its people and its principles. Captain Hayes and Lieutenant Evans touched down at the base, their mission complete. But the weight of what they had done would stay with them. They had flown the B-2 Spirit not just as soldiers, but as messengers. And in the aftermath of one of the darkest days in history, their aircraft had shown the world that even in the face of unimaginable loss, America would not be defeated. But the legacy of the B-2 Spirit was not only in the destruction it caused, but in the message it carried, that when America strikes, it does so with precision, with power, and with a resolve that cannot be broken.